Hi, today we're going to be talking to Brad Thomas, co-founder of Evercast.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
So, I've heard that you guys are doing a lot of really big things, and I would just love to know what is Evercast? What are you guys doing? What you got going on?
So we basically, it's funny, we pretty much saved an entire industry. Um, and it's, yeah, irony is that we're out of Phoenix, which is kind of funny, but we basically saved Hollywood during the pandemic. And we pretty much created a remote collaboration platform for editors and visual effects artists and musicians to collaborate with their teams remotely and continue to create the content that we love and enjoy on TV.
So just saving Hollywood. That's just what you've
Yeah,
been.
yeah, that's where we started. Yeah, we basically the whole idea actually came about. So 2015, I think, is when we founded the company. And in the previous company that I was the founder of, which did not work out, but we were doing marketing videos, and it was always such a pain that I happened to be the editor of those videos, and our team who was making the marketing videos they were always remote. And so what was happening is that I would render a file at the end of the day. I would send the file out, and I'd wait for everyone to come back with their notes. Like a 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I don't like the way you cut this scene, and the whole process became very protracted, right? Especially because I'd
Mhm.
have to wait for their feedback, and then when I got their feedback, I couldn't sometimes understand what it was they were saying, so I'd have to hop on the phone with them. And so the process of, especially that like that last 10 or 15% of
Mhm.
creating some video content became very difficult for us. And so me and my other founder was like, can't we do this on Skype or Zoom where we can just
Mhm.
screen share and get the job done that way? And at the time, they were getting about 15 to 20 frames per second on the screen share. And we decided that when we were no longer able to move the company that we were at forward. We pivoted, and we decided to try to create a new company where we would create the software that would enable you to pretty much stream in super high resolution, where you could work on edits and work on visual effects together in real time. And sometimes you don't realize why things don't exist until you get into them and you start realizing they're actually usually hard thought.
Mhm.
Um, so it took us about 3 years, I think, before we actually got the technology to where we were comfortable with introducing it to Hollywood. But then, the question is how do you introduce a piece of technology into what some call the closed garden of Hollywood? A very, very difficult industry to break into. Um, so, that was a problem that we were contemplating the entire time while we were trying to develop the technology, and, throughout the whole process trying to raise just enough capital to get to the
Mhm.
next step. And I mean, I got stories galore about those experiences. But we just got lucky. And
Mhm.
what happened so one of my co-founders, Alex, he used to own a very successful company about 15, 20 years ago. And I believe it was his first investor's son just so happened to be living next door to one of the biggest film editors in the world, whose name is Roger Barton. And he's edited like Transformers and World War Z and all these huge movies. And he was just about to start the Godzilla movie that came out a little while ago.
Mhm.
And so um, this kid walked over to Roger's house and was like, "Hey, my dad's buddy's working on this software. You should check it out." And so we gave a demo to Roger, and Roger loved it so much that he asked Legendary and Warner Brothers if he could try it with the director, because Roger was supposed to go to Atlanta for, I think, 4 or 5 months to be on
Mhm.
location while they shot the movie. And so on a Sunday afternoon, him and the director tried it, and they ended up using it for 3 hours. And the director said, "Dude, why don't come to Atlanta? Stay in LA." And that really hit Roger hard, because the reason why Roger was living in that house next to this guy was because he was going through a divorce.
Mhm.
And the reason why he was going through the divorce is the strain that the industry that he chose to work in put on his relationship with his wife. And so he was like, wait a second, I can stay home in LA, still work on this huge movie, and spend time with my son, who I haven't been able to spend time with because of all the time I'm spent, being out in different countries and stuff like that. So Roger was so moved by the experience that after Godzilla, he took about 9 or 10 months off of film editing, and just started introducing us to all his peers within Hollywood, from all the major studios and that type of thing. And so So yeah, so we were getting some big clients. We weren't making a lot of money, but we were making some. But it was, we were getting an important win here, an important win there. You have a big director use it here, and that type of thing. And ultimately, what happened is by the time COVID hit, um, everyone in the industry at least heard of us for all
Mhm.
those years of just, I was going to LA, even though I live in Phoenix. Every Monday, I was hopping on a plane to LA and pretty much staying there until Friday. And all that time spent that, me and Roger just banging on these studio doors and giving demos and that type of thing. When COVID hit, everyone was like, what are we going to do? What was that Evercast thing called? That's Evercast. That's it. And so we basically took off like a rocket ship. And what ultimately happened is after all this growth came, all the creatives in the industry started going, wait a second, why weren't we using this before COVID? Like, this is way more efficient. You had like directors who live in Malibu who were driving 90 minutes one way into like the Burbank studio going, wait. Why am I spending 3 hours of my day in traffic when I could be doing this out of the house, 5 or 6 days of the week, and I'll come in like once a week. So, even though COVID created the explosion for us, ultimately what happened was people started seeing the efficiencies of especially when it comes to content creation, that your team doesn't have to be centralized in one building. And actually, there's so many examples of why it's beneficial not to be. And, because of COVID, a lot of these professional creatives, like editors and stuff, they moved out of LA to
Mhm.
Montana, to Idaho and stuff. And because of our platform, it doesn't, you can, the studios can still leverage that talent because you don't have to be in LA now to cut a movie. You don't need to be in LA now to do visual effects. You can be anywhere in the world and still get the job done.
That's like an incredible the timing of that I think was
Well,
just you did all of the prep work, made all of the connections, and then when the opportunity presented itself, it seems like you really just captured the market.
yeah, it's timing is everything. I mean, one of our investors, he always used to say that, the opportunity train only comes by once. And if you're lucky to have the train come by, will you be ready to hop on it? Right.
Mhm.
And so that's pretty much like one of the lessons I learned was the fact that, there was so many years of just hardcore struggle. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
talking not knowing how I'm going to pay rent, not knowing how we're going to put food on the table. I mean, just it was insane what we had to go through. But there is something to be said about how if you're seeing forward motion, maybe it's not successful yet, but you're seeing certain indicators, right? That are like, okay, this is working. I think, right? It's really about kicking the can down the road as
Mhm.
long as you can, because if you do, you might just get lucky enough and the opportunity train may actually stop by and you might just be ready enough to hop on it. And that's,
Yeah.
we're a perfect example of that. We were a small team too when COVID hit. I mean, we were one, two, three, four, five, I think 5 people plus a few developers. So, to onboard 1,400% growth.
I mean,
So
yeah,
like,
how did you handle those phone calls when that came in? I mean, did you even have enough people to like take the leads? Like what was that week like? Like the first, when it kicked off. Let's talk
it
about
was
that.
so crazy because not only so there was like I think there was 4 of us in the office, right? So there's 4 of us in the office, and I'm like onboarding, all these crazy famous directors and stuff like that. While we had another person fielding phone calls, while we had another person doing accounting, and it's like we all don't know if we're all going to die because we're all giving each other COVID. Like it was really weird, and there's no way, especially in that beginning moment, there was no way we were going to be able to be remote. Like we had to be together because there was just
Mhm.
so much happening at one time. And honestly, it was just about, we had the few team members that we had, we all had enough skill sets in certain areas that we were able to all both support the product, onboard users, take care of the accounting side of things. um, and what's even crazier too is that, when you're a tech founder and you build a piece of technology, you always build it with scale in mind, but you don't really know if it's actually going to be able to handle the scale that you seek, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that happened, which I'm just so grateful for, is that, even though the platform wasn't perfect by any means, we built it just well enough that it was able to handle that tsunami. We ultimately we just released it actually February 1st. So starting, I think it was August of last year, or was it June of last year? we knew that we were going to have to rebuild the entire platform. Like it just
Mhm.
wasn't built in a way that was scalable and to handle the tens of thousands and potentially hundreds of thousands of users that we might be using us in the future. So, we basically started from scratch. And February 1st, we released the brand new Evercast, which is just completely rebuilt from the ground up. But yeah, it's just crazy to me to think that that thing held up as long as it did. Especially knowing just everything that was, I mean, it was still very secure and stuff, but
Mhm.
just like not only the technology, not only the platform itself, but like how we built the AWS infrastructure and how that scaled up, and that wasn't perfect. So sometimes servers weren't firing up, and all of a sudden a director would call and be like, "I can't get into my room," and it's like, "Oh, because there's no server available." So yeah, it's something. It's just one of those moments that I'll definitely look back on in my
Mhm.
life, and it was crazy and hectic at the time. But now I'm really thankful for the moment. It's just one of those cool things that you look back on and remember that you lived. Go, oh my gosh, this actually happened. You know,
Yeah. I mean, it was
and,
such a intense, it had to have been an intense moment when it was like you went from, are we going to make it to like beyond thriving? I mean, just a
oh,
straight line. I mean, you
it,
probably couldn't have even enjoyed your success. You were just stressed.
no, and it's crazy. And I'm still to this day, scaling. People don't realize if you're ever fortunate to be in this position where you're no longer in like the startup struggle mode, right? But now you're
Mhm.
in the scaling mode, and scaling comes with all sorts
Mhm.
of challenges. I mean, to scale to the level that we have and then to scale where we want to go, I mean, this is the next challenge for us, right? And one of the things I don't regret it necessarily, but I always remember people telling me, especially back in the days when things were just so difficult. And, I was depressed, and, you start wondering, and are you doing the right thing? And, especially when you're going out and raising money and like you're talking to an investor and you're trying to get $100,000 from them, or, it's $500,000 from them. And there is a part of you that's going, am I just stealing this money?
Mhm.
Like legitimately, like, how confident am I about this product? Am I just stealing this money? It's an interesting thing to have to like go through. But during those difficult moments, I hated them so much. I
Mhm.
hated them. And now looking back on it, I'm so glad I went through those moments of struggle and stuff, because it really like turned me into the business person that I am today. And so now, even though things are really difficult, because now we're in this whole scaling side of the business,
Mhm.
I'm trying to take moments to enjoy the moment more, because I know based on my past that, like, let's say 5 years from now into the future, I'll look back on these moments and go, oh man, so we first had the blow up, okay, and then we had the scaling. I'm trying to just kind of appreciate the moment a little more, versus always being so over consumed by just still so much unpredictability and
Mhm.
unknowns and things that might go wrong and things that you're trying to fix. Um, just trying to recognize the moment a little better than I did before the blow up. Because like I said, now looking back on it, I'm really grateful. I had to struggle to get here. We all had to struggle, just because it really makes you appreciate things in a different way.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to know, is there a moment where you were like, almost like starstruck with yourself? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm on the phone with so and so.
I will tell you. So when I was a kid, Top Gun was my favorite movie, and I even dressed up as Maverick for Halloween 2 years in a row. I got a picture somewhere of myself. Like, my grandmother made me the entire, the
Mhm.
pilot jacket and stuff. I had the aviator glasses. I looked like a little Tom Cruise. Well, so the entire movie of Top Gun 2 was made through Evercast. The
Wow.
entire thing from start to finish. I don't even know if Tom ever actually sat with his editorial or visual effects crew. They did everything. He was traveling, I think, from like London to LA or something like that. So, and they were using it before COVID, by the way.
Hmm.
So when COVID hit, it was just like, kind of business as usual to a certain extent. But the fact that that movie, the entire movie, was made on Evercast, to me is just, it's like it's crazy, and it's really crazy. And now, and I do, because of how many people have used our platform, I've obviously met a lot of celebrities and stuff like that. I'm not going to
Mhm.
really mention any names, but yes, there has been moments where either whether it's a movie franchise that's now using us that
Mhm.
I used to love as a kid, or it's an actual actor or actress that's now using it, or a director or whatever. I've got to meet a lot of them, and you know, it's interesting because when you start meeting all of these types of people who you've idolized on TV for so long, when you meet them in person, you start realizing like, man, they're actually just like us. it's it's interesting, right? It's there's there's so much movie magic going on that when you meet especially an actor, when you meet an actor who you've seen on the big screen and then you meet him in person,
Mhm.
or you see him on video conferencing and you're talking to them and you're like, this is not the person this is not the person I remember on the big screen, Uh,
Wow.
so, yeah, I think that I'm less starstruck about the people I meet. I'm more starstruck about the types of franchises that are using our platform, because they're franchises that,
Mhm.
I can't say any names, but there are some big franchises using the platform, that I used that of movies, for example, that I grew up with when I was a kid, that I was a huge fan of. So
Mhm.
that's
I mean, that's
definitely.
that's gotta be I mean, that's gotta be an amazing feeling. I mean, I know one of the most rewarding things that at least other entrepreneurs have mentioned to me is the feeling that they're a part of something bigger, and this is something that you can literally see the outcome, the fruits of the labor of what you helped produce. I mean, that has to just, warm and fuzzies all over.
Oh, well, I mean, honestly, the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that we helped save thousands of jobs.
Yeah.
The fact that we helped keep an industry moving, and that not only did we help save thousands of jobs because, all these people, all these creatives were able to continue using the platform, but also I think about the millions, the hundreds of billions of people that were sitting at home and all they had during quarantine
Mhm.
was the content on, Netflix or on,
Mhm.
on Disney Plus or whatever it is, right? So the fact that we help those creatives get that content released, so that, with all this depression and craziness that was going
Mhm.
around, especially during the big days of COVID, the fact that we played a role in kind of helping people kind of disconnect from reality a little bit, because that's the beauty of TV shows and movies and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? It's like a suspension of belief. It's something that's, you're so caught up in your everyday life. It's something that, it's one of those few things that takes you out of reality for a little while, because
Mhm.
you kind of, you live through the content. So that was, to me, that's the most rewarding thing, and that's what that Emmy trophy that I showed you, that's what that symbolizes. It's
Yeah.
not yeah, it's cool, we created some cool tech and we've had a lot of help creating that tech and that type of thing, but to me, what the Emmy stands for is that I was a part of something that truly, um, helped a lot of people, both directly and indirectly. That's more, that's all the money and everything that's happened to date, that everything is dwarfed by that very fact, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I know firsthand. I'm sitting at home and I've got my son and we can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. And we're sitting here. We've played every game we have. We've done every science experiment he wanted to do. And I just was like, I need a minute. And being able to just, I would be so devastated if there wasn't like a new show that he was excited to watch, or
Totally.
a movie that he could look forward to. That definitely helped make everything a lot more bearable.
Well, and I don't know what percentage of, I would say a high percentage of all the new content that's coming out on all the major networks and that type of thing. It was all, we had some involvement with it at some point.
Yeah, that's incredible. You're on Netflix and you're like, hey, I know that. Let's
Yeah,
watch it.
we're getting credits too, but I don't keep track of like we're getting credits. But like one movie I know of that we got a credit in because I saw it, was a movie called Greenland.
Hmm.
So it's about a meteor that's gonna destroy Earth, and they have to find a bunker in Greenland, and it's a good movie. You should definitely watch it. But we actually got a credit at the end of that, so that was, you know that's kind of a cool thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we aren't dealing with that in like 2022, but it sounds like a great
No, no.
movie.
Well, I'm still waiting for the aliens to attack. To be honest with you,
Yeah, it's
at this
it's gonna
point.
happen at some point. Um,
Exactly.
so one of the things that I think I didn't put two and two together is that I know that you were onboarding editors and directors, but I mean, for one company that you were bringing on, you were probably adding, dozens of people as users within the platform. I mean, what did that process look like? Like onboarding the one, and then he's like, and then here's the 20 people that need access.
Well, the good news is that, like, it's configuring the editor or the visual effects artist, whoever's the one who's actually going to be sending their stream, right?
Hmm.
I always tell people that look at Evercast like it's Zoom on steroids.
Mm.
You know, like when you screen share in Zoom and, you know, you can share your screen and do that type of thing. Well, just imagine doing that at 1080, 60 frames per second. So it's like a super crystal clear, super low latency, which means that whatever's leaving, if I'm streaming my, let's say, Premiere session, I'm editing film, I'm editing a movie in Adobe Premiere, and I'm streaming my screen, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you are seeing left my computer about 100 milliseconds ago.
Wow.
So it's just as fast as being in the same room. So if the director or whoever, because you can have like up to 30 people live in the room, right? So if someone goes, "Oh, could you stop right there?" There is literally no delay. I mean, it's just like it would just be like me standing over your shoulder going, "Oh, stop right there. I want to look at that scene," right? So it's just
Mm-hmm.
that super low latency makes it really awesome. But back to your question, so configuring the person who's going to be doing the streaming,
Mm-hmm.
if there's any difficult part of the platform, it's just making sure that their settings are correct and that they're set up to send a nice stream. But in terms of like the other people who are going to be participating in the live edit session or the live visual effects review or whatever it is, that's actually super easy because that's just like joining the StreamYard thing that we're using right now,
Mm-hmm.
or joining a Zoom session. It's super simple.
Yeah, I mean, because I was thinking that through, and I'm like, when I'm onboarding a new company at Galvanize, I'm having to set up, 15 or 20 people profiles. I'm like, that would not be scalable.
Yeah.
And
Thankfully, we
just
had that part automated. So like I could, as an editor, for example, I could edit my entire team into my Evercast room, and I could do it by myself and with no involvement at all from the Evercast team.
that is some great foresight right there.
That would have been impossible. Like
That would have
literally, if we didn't build that feature, it would have been 100% impossible to do what we did.
So, I mean, I'd love to kind of go through some of the version histories because obviously you've made improvements from when you started to, where you are now. I mean, was there ever an iteration where you were like, "I'm done. I can't do this. Like, this will
Oh,
have to be good enough," or like, what did that look like?
yeah. You know what's crazy? So I was looking through. I used to use my YouTube channel, and I would upload private videos of when because I was at the time, me and my other founder, we were doing QA, right? So anytime a
Mhm.
new code release was pushed, we'd have to test it ourselves. We didn't have a team of people whose sole job was to test a
Right.
release to make sure it's good. And so I'll never forget, even this is before COVID, this is before I think we even had any customers. I have all these, I got at least 100 or so videos. They're unlisted, so they're not public, right? But there's all these videos of like, look, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. The stream keeps on freezing. I don't know why. And it's like you can see I have like a beard, and I just look distracted. You can just see the misery in my face as I'm like describing these issues, because it was like, fix one issue, there's 5 other issues. Oh, we fixed those 5 issues, but now there's 10 additional issues, right? So there was this. I got this whole archive of just videos of me screen sharing and basically pointing out what's not working, and or like iPhones. Like when we were trying to build our first iPhone app, I mean, like my iPhone turned into a hot brick. It was using so much iPhone CPU. It would literally just heat up the phone so much where you could hardly even touch the phone. And I'm like, guys, this is a problem.
Oh my gosh.
So so yeah, so there were definitely, I mean, I don't even know how many. And two, like just looking at the old versions of the software and how far we came in terms of just a UI UX, right? Just
Mhm.
developing an interface where the user could clearly or could easily navigate themselves
Mhm.
around without too much help and that type of thing. People don't realize the how difficult it is to truly find a UI, a user interface, and a user experience that works for your type of customer, right?
Mhm.
I mean, even the biggest companies in the world, Apple's a great example. I mean, how many iterations do they go through of just trying to design the perfect user experience for their clients, right? It's an art form within itself, and it's an art form based on experimentation, right? Because you're not going to
Mhm.
get it right out of the gate. You have to know your customer. You have to know how they behave, how they use your platform, and that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the new Evercast, right? Is that I am so fortunate that we listened to our customer base.
Yeah.
So we had this huge explosion, and obviously we weren't perfect, and there were things that we didn't know were wrong with it. There were things that we knew were wrong with it. But the other thing that we got out of it is that we started learning how people were using the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So all our new version of Evercast is we didn't really release any major new features yet. We have a bunch of big ones coming, but what we did is we not only wrote all new code and it's way more stable, and now our back end can scale infinitely and that type of thing. But we also learn from the customer, what is it that you really want out of this product?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're smart enough to listen to that, then you ultimately stop building a product that you want, and you start building a product that they want. And when you're first starting off as an entrepreneur, you're making assumptions. Like,
Right.
you don't know what you have this grand idea of, like, your company, here's what it's going to do, and it's going to take over the world, but you don't really know exactly how the
Yeah.
market's going to see it. You don't know how people are going to use it, right? So you're making all these assumptions, and you're trying to validate those assumptions as you go. But once you get to this position, it's less
Mm-hmm.
about validating assumptions, and it's more about just opening your ears and listening.
Yeah.
And so all we did was just listen.
So, I mean, I've got two very important questions for you. One, was there a point where you thought, like, we should just close?
Yeah. Yes, there's a point. Actually, this is such a critical moment in our history, and at least especially for me individually.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to date, we've raised $10 million, all from private
Mm-hmm.
equity. And the last few million were a lot easier than the first few million. But there was this one time in particular where we owed about $350,000 to our developers. And, I try to coach other younger entrepreneurs when I can. And I always tell people, and this is a life lesson that I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone should understand, is that there's a line where you think you're screwed,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a line where you're actually screwed. And a lot of people give up on the first line because
Yeah.
it's not easy, right? But if you're able to see through your own fear and push,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually a lot more you can travel before you're actually screwed, right?
Right.
So with this particular time, we were actually screwed. And what happened was that we owed our developers like $350,000. I think we owed like Amex another $20,000. And we had one guy who was supposed to come in for, I think it was $500,000. And he said he's going to come in. Everything's cool. We're going to do this. All right. I'm going to send you the subscription agreement tomorrow. We're going to wire it. And we probably had 24 hours. So, I mean, the timing was perfect. I mean, literally, I told my fiance, "Oh my God, babe, we're saved. We're good." And she started crying. I was, well, the next day, there's no wire in the bank account. There's no
Oh.
subscription agreement in my email. And so this guy calls us up and goes, "Hey, I thought about it. It's too much of a risk for me. I'm out."
Oh.
And that was, I mean, there's been some insanely difficult things. I mean, I could literally spend a whole show just on the things that we've had to overcome. But this
Mm-hmm.
one particular moment, it was so devastating, especially when you thought you were saved, that like it made
Yeah.
me sick. And so I'm sitting on my couch, or laying down on my couch, and I'm like sick to my stomach. I don't know what to do. And about a year earlier, I read a book by Ben Horowitz called "The Hard Thing About Things." He's one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz, the big VC firm in Silicon
Mm-hmm.
Valley. In the book, one of the things that he talks about is there's always a move to make. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what situation you're in, whether it's business or life, there's always a move to make. But most of the times we fail to see the move because we get overcome. Fear overcomes us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm laying on the couch and I'm like, there's always a move to make, always a move to make. And then I think about this one investor who's already in for $500,000. And I've already asked every other investor. I even asked this guy. Like, I'm like, a month earlier, because I knew this moment was coming. I'm like, hey, would you want to maybe kick in another 100K? And he's like, no, I can't. I got too much other stuff going on. But literally, I knew that if he was in town, he would be the only person that would at least listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to pick up that phone. I was like, oh. Again, back to what I said earlier in the podcast, which is like, how much do you really believe in what you're doing? Because now I have to go and ask this guy for at least $400,000. And how am I just stealing? Am I just delaying the inevitable? Is failure just inevitable? And I just keep delaying it by somehow convincing investors to give me more money, right? And so I'm like, you know what? I still believe in what we're doing. I'm just gonna give him a call and see if he's in town, because he's my only option. Other than that, we're done. We're toast. And usually he's in San Diego that time of year. I call him up, and he's actually in Phoenix. So I'm like, can I come over? I need to talk to you about something. Oh yeah, come on over. I haven't seen you in a while. So drive over to his house. It was like a 15-minute drive. It felt like it was 5 hours long. Pull up to his house, go into his house, and have a 2-hour conversation. And all I could do is just tell him the truth. Like, here's what's happening. And he wrote a $400,000 check and saved the company. And it was such an
Wow.
impactful moment for me that if you see on my phone right here, I keep a picture of him signing the check
Oh.
as a reminder of that moment. So this is my wallpaper on my phone, and every time I turn my phone on, it's literally a reminder of that moment, because I don't ever want to forget where we came from, and that is a perfect reminder of not forgetting, especially when it's on your phone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he passed away about a year and a half ago. But that moment, like, to me, it's just that was not only a big moment for the company and everything, but it was a big moment for me internally as an entrepreneur, because at that point, I mean, I've overcome so many incredible things, but that one moment, I knew that I could power through anything. Once I survived that, it was like,
Mhm.
and honestly, after that moment is when things really started kind of opening up for us. So it was almost like the universe or whatever was just like testing me, like, all right, you've got this far, huh? Okay, I'm gonna throw one more obstacle at you and see if you can handle it. And every part of me, I mean, I look back on that moment now and go, man, what if I didn't get off that couch? What if I
Mhm.
didn't pick up my phone and make that phone call? Like, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. So it's crazy to think about alternate realities on what would have happened
Yeah.
if you didn't just get your ass out of the seat and do something about it. Because it was so easy just to give up and
Mhm.
like curl in the corner and you know, just die basically, right? So easy. But somehow I found it in me, and the rest is history, I guess.
Wow. And the last question I have is really, you guys experienced so much growth. You had to onboard people, you had to hustle. I mean, what is the culture like at your company?
To expect the culture in our company is a lot of one of the things that we look for when we hire people is, they don't have to be entrepreneurs, but they
Mhm.
have to exhibit some entrepreneurial traits. And the reason why is because there's so many unknown things happening right now
Mhm.
that we're getting there, but we're not as structured as we may want to be, right? So,
Mhm.
we're always learning, and we're trying to figure out where communication breakdowns are and stuff like that. So the culture for us is a bunch of people who are just, they love what we're doing. They believe in what we're doing, because ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to become the remote collaboration platform for creatives.
Yeah.
So whether you're a Hollywood film star, whether you're a professional YouTuber, whether you're a wedding videographer, like, we want to create a platform
Yeah.
for creatives. And I think everyone really buys into that, because creativity is kind of what makes the world go around. So if
Mhm.
we can be the platform that is like the connector of creatives
Mhm.
around the world to do work, that's a pretty cool thing to be a part of. So our culture here is, and again, the other crazy thing is that we've now have over 100 employees, and I've only met half of them,
Wow.
and they're all remote. There's literally, we have an office here in Phoenix, and I think four of us work out of here. So it's the 99% of this company is completely working from home, and they were working from home before COVID too. Like, we had a remote culture before COVID even hit. So yeah, so I would just say that our culture is very entrepreneurial. People who know that things aren't going to be right, and that, yes, we might have said something yesterday which is not true today, and we're sorry, and we know. And I think part of creating that kind of culture is just admitting your faults, and just
Mhm.
it's just making sure that people up front understand that you're not perfect, and that this is
Mhm.
not going to be like going to work for Facebook or Google, where they've got all these decades of structure underneath them, and that you're going to have one job and that's the job you're going to do. No, no, no. We might hire you for one job, but you actually might do 5 other things. And if you like that, then this is the right place for you to work.
That's amazing. I think it's so cool when startups can come in and like, all right, I recognize that you've got these skills, but I think you've got a lot of talent here. We're gonna leverage both. Like we're gonna
Oh yeah,
we're
and
just gonna make
sometimes
you grow.
totally. And sometimes they move completely out of the original thing that we hired them for. We've had several team members who came in for one reason, like one person who came in for something completely unrelated to HR, it wasn't even HR related, and now they're part of HR, as an example, right? So, and I love that too, because I love seeing people not only rise up to the occasion, but it allows people to find like where they're passionate, and that's the best type of team you want. You want
Yeah.
people doing things that they're passionate about, because that's where you're going to get the best performance out of anyone, is when they're doing something that they're passionate about.
Yeah, that's amazing. They get the opportunity to come in, do what they think they love, and then just discovery within a company that's ready to foster growth. I mean, that's such a
Yeah,
healthy
and
environment to be in.
know that like we're always open to that. And
Hmm.
like even the doesn't matter who you are in the team, you all have access to the three founders. Like we're all, we look at that, we truly do look at our company as a big family. And so we're always trying to create that. If you can't have structure and things are going to be messed up, the least you can do is just encourage communication,
Hmm.
and just keep letting people know this is not going to be perfect, but just if you have any problems, just communicate. That's all you have to do, and we'll find a solution to that problem.
It sounds like the ultimate open door policy.
Yeah, pretty much. That's we're just trying to create a place that I would want to work at. And I do
Well,
work here, so
you do. I was going to say, lucky enough, you get to. Um,
exactly.
well, I would love to just kind of give our listeners some direction on how they can learn more about your company.
Yeah, just all you have to do is go to evercast.us.
Sounds good. I will
Pretty
be
simple.
watching you guys. I think that you guys have a huge growth trajectory, and I'm just so glad to have had the time to talk to you. So, thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
It was super nice to meet you, and thank you for inviting me.